Have you ever just stood and looked at a massive tree and thought to yourself, how in the world did all of that grow from a tiny little seed? I mean, where does all that stuff, the wood, the bark, the leaves, where does all that mass actually come from? It's a question that feels so simple, but wow, the answer unlocks one of the most incredible processes on the entire planet.
All right, so let's get into it. Here's how we're going to crack this case. We're going to start with a really cool historical mystery, then we'll zoom way in to see the tiny engine inside a leaf. After that, we'll break down the two main stages of the process, and finally, we'll put it all together with the simple equation that literally powers life on Earth.
So, our story kicks off almost 400 years ago. There was this scientist who came up with a brilliantly simple experiment that basically flipped everything people thought they knew about plants completely on its head.
For centuries, for thousands of years, everybody just assumed the answer was, well, yeah, of course, plants are in the ground, so they must be eating the soil to get bigger. Makes total sense, right? But a Belgian scientist named John van Helmont, he wasn't so sure. He decided he was going to test it.
So here's what he did, and it was super careful work. He took a small willow sapling and weighed it precisely. Then he took a huge pot of soil, baked it in an oven to get all the water out, and weighed that too, exactly 90 kilograms. He planted the tree, and for 5 long years, he did nothing but give it water. Then, the moment of truth. He carefully pulled the tree out and weighed them both all over again.
And the result was pretty amazing. The tree had put on 75 kilograms of mass. It went from this tiny little sapling to a real, solid tree with tons of new wood, branches, and leaves. But now, here's the real shocker: the soil. After growing this huge 75-kilogram tree, how much mass had the soil lost? A measly 55 grams. That's it. It was practically nothing. So this was huge. The tree's mass clearly did not come from the soil, so where in the world did it come from? Now, Van Helmont thought it must have been the water he added. And you know what? He was close, but he was missing one other key ingredient, something that was all around him in the air. To find that, we have to zoom in a lot. Turns out, the real answer to Van Helmont's mystery is hidden deep inside the plant cells, in these tiny, super powerful factories that run on pure sunlight. So, meet the star of the show, the chloroplast. These little green, lentil-shaped things are crammed into the cells of every green leaf. This right here is ground zero. It's the engine where all the magic of photosynthesis actually happens.
Okay, so let's pop the hood on this engine and see how it's built. You've got a double membrane that works like a gatekeeper, controlling what gets in and out. Inside there's this jelly-like fluid called the stroma. And floating in that fluid are these little stacks of discs, which look kind of like pancakes, called grana. And believe me, each one of these parts has a super important job to do.
All right, let's break down how this whole thing works. Stage 1 is all about capturing energy. They call it the light-dependent reactions. And, well, the name says it all. It absolutely needs sunlight to get started.
First things first, we gotta talk about the fuel. The white light we see from the sun isn't just one thing. It's actually a whole rainbow of different colors, all mixed together, from red all the way to violet. And each color is just a different wavelength of energy. Which brings us to a question I'm sure you've wondered about before. If sunlight has all those colors in it, why do plants look green to us? The secret is a pigment inside those chloroplasts called chlorophyll. Now, chlorophyll is fantastic at soaking up the energy from red and blue light, but for whatever reason, it's just not very good at absorbing green light. So what does it do? It just reflects the green light away. And when that reflected green light hits our eyes, boom, we see a green leaf. So what happens with all that energy it's soaked up from the red and blue light? Well, that energy gets the chlorophyll all excited. And this energized chlorophyll does two main things. First, it splits water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen. And second, it charges up another molecule called ATP. You can just think of ATP as a tiny rechargeable battery for the cell. The oxygen, that's just a waste product for the plant, which is pretty lucky for us, right? Okay, so the plant has captured the sun's energy, and it's stored it in all those little ATP batteries. For stage 2, it's time to actually use that energy to build something useful, something like food. This part is called the light-independent phase. It doesn't need sunlight directly. Think of it like the factory's night shift. It can happen anytime, day or night, as long as it's got a supply of that ATP and hydrogen that was made back in stage 1.
So this all goes down in the stroma, that fluid we talked about. The plant sucks in carbon dioxide from the air, combines it with the hydrogen it got from splitting water, and uses the energy from those ATP batteries to power the whole chemical reaction. And the final product? C6H12O6, which you probably know better as glucose. It's a simple sugar, pure energy for the plant.
So let's do a quick side-by-side. Stage 1 happens in those pancake stacks, the grana. It needs sunlight, and it spits out oxygen and a bunch of charged-up batteries. Stage 2 happens in the fluid, the stroma. It doesn't need light, and it uses those batteries to build sugar. It's a perfect two-step solar-powered assembly line. Okay, let's zoom back out from the tiny world of the cell and look at the big picture again. Because this whole amazing, complicated process, it can all be boiled down to one single, beautiful chemical equation.
And here it is. This is the entire story in one elegant line. On the left, you've got the ingredients, 6 molecules of carbon dioxide from the air and 6 molecules of water from the soil. Then, with a little energy from sunlight, the plant does its thing and turns them into the stuff on the right, 1 molecule of glucose for food and 6 molecules of oxygen as waste. That's it. That is where the tree's mass comes from. It's pulling carbon right out of the air.
So why does this one little reaction matter so much? Well, let's see. That glucose, it's the food that powers almost every single ecosystem on Earth. And that waste product, oxygen, that's just the stuff that fills our atmosphere and allows pretty much all of us animals to breathe. So yeah, it's kind of a big deal.
Now plants are smart. They don't use up all this glucose at once. They link the molecules together to make starch, which is a great way to store all that solar energy for a rainy day. And we see that stored energy all the time in things like potatoes, rice, corn, and carrots. Anytime you eat a plant, you are literally eating stored sunlight. When you really stop and think about it, plants figured out how to perfectly and efficiently turn solar energy into fuel millions and millions of years ago. It really makes you wonder, what other incredible secrets, what other brilliant solutions are still locked away inside a simple, humble green leaf?